Going through medical school once is hard enough, let alone doing it twice because you moved countries and the new country doesn't accept your old license. I am Dr. Kylie, and welcome to Unshakable Brain, your guide to an unshakable brain. My mission is simple to help you grow a brain that's stronger, sharper, and unshakable in every part of your life. Each week, we explore the science, stories, and strategies to make that happen. This episode is brought to you by Dr. Rewire's Brain DNA Test. Find out more at unshakablebrain.ai. All right, let's dive in. With me today is Dr. Manuela Powell. She is originally from Brazil and moved to the US, and we're going to go through her story today in a lens of how every decision she made impacted her brain health, and because of that, impacted her little boys along the line. So, welcome on, Dr. You want me to call you Manuela or Dr. Powell?
Yeah, Manuela is good.
Manuela, okay. All right, walk us through life in Brazil. My stepmother-in-law is actually Brazilian.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, first of all, hi, and thank you for having me. I love chatting with you, as you know, so this is going to be fun. So, yeah, I am from Rio, which is an awesome place to visit. I was not a fan of living there very much. So I always had that idea to move, at least to try out and to, come and do some research or some training in the US. And eventually that happened in 2008. And as you American practitioners know, you need to do the USMLE to practice in the US, which is not the case in Brazil. So I went through medical school, a residency, and a fellowship in Brazil. I was a cancer surgeon, so I did general surgery and then surgical oncology and practiced for 5 years. And so I wasn't attending for 5 years and then decided to move here. So I went to Washington, D.C. to take, the USMLE and all that stuff. And as soon as I moved, my dad got diagnosed with cancer, with a very rare tumor, to a Klatskin tumor. I was like, oh man, I gotta be the son, the father of a cancer surgeon to have the
Yeah, I'm like,
rarest.
you are a cancer surgeon, aren't you? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I was able to bring him over to Hopkins, where absolutely out of coincidence, the biggest the world specialist in that surgery was. So just there it was like, how did this even happen? So I'm trying, I'm studying to the USMLE, but also going through all that. It was really tough. He had so many, like 9 procedures before he could even have the surgery, which was
Oh,
14
smokes.
hours and all of that stuff. And then chemo and
A lot
radiation.
for your body to go through.
So much. Yeah. So that was a lot. But, he had a tumor that usually the survival is 6 months and he lived for 22. So we counted that as a win. And I really spent a lot of that time with him since he came over to the US and while he was doing his radiation, or no, chemo he did in Brazil. So I traveled a lot there. So just that was a lot on the system, especially, you're trying to learn these new things because I went to medical school. My first year was 92. And then obviously USMLE step one is by basic science. And the basic science I needed to be tested on did not exist in 92. I had to relearn molecular biology. Thank God for YouTube at that point, because that's how I learned it. And I did very well on the test, but then I decided because I went with my dad through all of that at Hopkins, which truly is an amazing place, I was like, oh, I really want to be a doctor here. So now I'm like way more encouraged to stay and practice here. So I decided to go through all the steps, which I did in about a year and a half with the whole, dad situation going on and me having to travel back and forth. And
When
eventually
you
at the
say
end
all
of
the
it,
steps, what does that mean?
so USMLE has three. It's USMLE step one, two, and three. One is basic science. Two is what people here in the US, you would take that step after your second year of medical school. Step two is clinical. So you would take that when you finish medical school. And then step three, you take after a year of residency. So it's more practical stuff. And I
Oh,
had to
it's
take all those.
very similar to the way chiropractic is laid out.
Yeah. So it's a lot.
Because
And, they
chiropractic,
take
it's
this
like the
as you're
first,
studying it.
yeah, your first year is all the science and stuff, and then you take part one of national board exams, and then you move into, I can't remember what part two is, but part three is clinical, and then part four, like you have to go around from room to room to room and perform.
Right.
different
Yes, there's like the
things.
actors that you have to, so step
Hmm.
two is two. There's that, the actor one, which is great. I loved it. And it was one cool thing about that is like there was one woman that you were supposed to offer her a shelter and she had to agree. She was, it was abuse. That was the
Okay.
diagnosis. And at the end of the test, the guy said, you were the only one that convinced the actor to do that. I was like, yes. That we're
Yeah.
able to like get the woman out of the situation. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself. Yeah, anyway, so I took all of those and then I got a job as a research fellow at Sloan Kettering, which for a cancer surgeon was, the dream, obviously. And I was a breast cancer surgeon, so I started working in the breast service and then decided to do the fellowship there, which I did the following year. And then I decided to do residency again, general surgery, because then I could be board certified. And everybody told me I was crazy. And I was like, yeah, sure, but I'll try. So I got in for a prelim year, which is, general surgery is 5 years, but you can either get a categorical position, which is the 5 years, or you can get a prelim, which is the first year. And then, for people, for example, who need sort of a prerequisite for other specialties. I was like, let me do a prelim year. And I did, and people were right. That was crazy. And I absolutely did not like that at all.
Oh,
And
did you
decided, I
finish
was
it?
like, the year, yes, I finished that year. But halfway through, I decided that I was going to go back to Brazil. And what happened then was I was turning 40 that year. So it was an intern with these people had just left medical school and they're, I don't know, 25 or whatever. And I'm
Uh-huh.
turning 40 and had been an attending, a fellow, and all that stuff. So that was an interesting year. But I decided I wanted to have kids. And I was like, well, I don't have time to go meet someone, so I'm just going to be artificially inseminated, right? Like that's the logical place to do. I'm going to do that and move back to Brazil. Everything's fine. Be a single mother by choice. And I did all the tests, everything was fine. I was ready to go and then started dating someone and then kind of like, and then kind of went anyway, I decided to take a sabbatical when that relationship was done, it was just like a couple of months. And that sabbatical took me to Hawaii. So I moved to Hawaii. I was supposed to be there a month. I lived there for almost a year. And that's when I met the father of my kids. We met there, we got married, we had kids. And so that was that was that like deviation from that was not the path, but it was obviously awesome because it's much better to have another parent to for your kids. So we did move to Brazil. We had our kids there, and then we decided to move back to the US. And that's when I had to make the decision to, well, I didn't have to, but I chose to quit surgery because I did want to see my kids grow up. And I would see when I was in at the Sloan Kettering or at Cornell where I did my first year, the prelim year, I would see all these people never seeing their kids, spending a whole entire week without seeing them because you left the house, they were still sleeping, and you come back, they were already in bed. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I had kids very late. I was 42, my first, and 44 with my second. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to see them. I want to be home if they're sick. I want to travel to Brazil to see my mom, when I want. So like I wanted location freedom and time freedom. And that, started this whole, how am I going to transition? What do I even do? Like I don't know how to do anything. I know to cut people and take cancer out. That's basically my skill. I don't think that's
I know how to
transferable.
cut people and remove their cancer.
Yeah. And after several months of that, because then we moved to the US again. So I have a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. I do not recommend, by the way, moving overseas with that situation. And I had to figure out, first of all, how to be, a mom to kids in Rio, in the US, because in Brazil I had a nanny, I had a maid, in Brazil, how things are. My mom was there, I had all the support. And then I moved to a place that had not that kind of support and had to decide what to do with the rest of my life. So eventually my husband at the time, we separated since then, but he was like, "Wow, I think you need a coach." And I was so clueless that I said, "Well, I don't play any sports. Why would I need a coach?" And it was like, "No, like a life coach or a career coach." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds like a scam, but I'm gonna look it up." And I looked it up and I was like, that's what I need to do with my life. Because when you're a cancer doctor, you can skip those conversations, but I loved the conversation of this your life is different now. When you have the diagnosis, everything changes. And I loved having those conversations with these women that a lot of times were really young. I had a lot of patients in their 40s and even 30s, and that would maybe get a surprise pregnancy, but a surprise cancer was not in the bingo card. So I
Mhm.
loved that those conversations, like what are the things in your life that you think you need to change so that doesn't affect your health so much, which brings it back to the brain health thing, right? That I noticed even back then how much of the mental stuff affected the physical stuff. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to go into coaching, because I thought, well, if people can change those dynamics early on, maybe they don't end up in an office with cancer like that. So that was something that was not my personal experience, but I saw so often, because when I started to talk to these women, or I would see their dynamics, like they had everything on paper that was perfect. And yet when you start talking, they're like, yeah, but I hate that. I don't want this career. And I didn't want this thing. I want it to be whatever other thing, but I'm saying yes to everything because that's what I'm quote unquote supposed to do. So I got
Wait, can you
started
say that
coaching
again?
for that.
These
Which,
women who had cancer, they looked perfect on paper,
yeah.
but they were miserable with life.
Yeah, they check the boxes, they're supposed to check to get happy. Like you have a relationship, you have a job, you have a career, you have a house, and they're like, yeah, I'm miserable. I'm like, I don't want any of these things, or I want them differently. Maybe I don't want to be a CEO. I want to have a job that doesn't require so much of me and I have more time with my kids. Maybe I don't want to be whatever other thing. Like, I don't want to live in this huge house. I'd rather live in a smaller house closer to the beach or whatever. There was so many of these things that I had these conversations with, and they felt like they couldn't do well. This is what's expected of me as a
Huh?
woman, as insert whatever category they place themselves in. So I
Yeah.
loved having those conversations and being like, how can you get yourself outside of those boxes that you checked and then find the boxes that actually matter to you so that you can live a life that doesn't bring you to a cancer doctor office in the future.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that that's causing cancer, but it's a very interesting
For sure. It's not, I don't think it's
factor
obviously the
of
cause, but
component.
cancer is multifactorial. So a lot of people have genetics for cancer and they never develop the disease. And a lot of people have maybe not as much a genetic component and end up in those things. And again, I don't think it's obviously the cause for sure. But there is an influence that even when I would see patients that had cancer maybe 20 years ago and they had all the treatment and then now they come back with either a new cancer or metastasis, I would ask those people, like, what happened in your life? Did anything happen in your life? And more often, I would say 9 times out of 10, it was like, oh yeah, my son died in an accident, my husband left with all my money, and there was something. And I started to
Mhm.
notice that she was fine for 20 years without cancer. And then this one thing happens that, decrease her immunity and all those things. And then whatever is dormant might come up. So it's not obviously the cause, but I think it's a factor for sure.
Yeah. All right. As you're going through your journey, and what I'm hearing is kind of similar to my journey, is we're a high performance, straight A kind of individual who's always going to go after the next thing. As you've gone from busy, 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 doctor, doctor, surgeon, surgeon, shifting over to mom, what was that shift like and how, like, present it to me as you would a life coach would?
Yeah, that was interesting because I was what I call a grown ass adult. I was 42. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be fine because I'm 42. Spoiler alert. It was not fine. It was really hard. And I think I didn't realize how much I fell into that trap of I have to do these things. So I noticed one particular day when my son was a newborn, he was months old. And please keep in mind, I had a nanny and I had a person working at my house to clean my house. And yet there I was washing bottles or something. My son like needed to breastfeed and have a bottle because, he ate like crazy. So I'm washing bottles and I'm seeing my husband with him in the little pack, the little the thing, the what should we call the baby Bjorn. He had the baby in the baby bjorn, and he was doing something like either reading a book or doing something for himself. And I looked at him and was like, how can he do that? Like he's doing something that has nothing to do with his child. And like I could do that. I had people to wash the damn bottles. I didn't have to wash the bottles. And yet there I was doing all the things. And I became like this person who had to like serve everybody and had to do everything for everyone. I honestly, to me, was very interesting from a coach's perspective, looking at that after how I immediately, as soon as I popped a baby out, I'm like, oh, this is my role now. I have to be the caretaker and the caregiver for everyone. So that was very interesting to see until the point where I recognized that and I was like, wait, what's going on? Like I have, and my husband at the time, to his credit, he would be like, no, go do something, like go, go have one night out that you go dancing or whatever. Cause I always liked that. I was like, go do that and I'll take care of the kids. And I was like, no, I can't, feeling, I don't know what it was that was like, I can't, this is the thing that I have to keep doing until I stopped and I was like, why? Why do I have to do that? I can actually. It's fine. Like he takes care of the kids fine. I trust him completely. It's not that only I know how to do it. It was not that. So eventually, slowly, I started to move away from that and get some of my identity back. So, and I started noticing that that was a common thing with moms, especially with older moms, funny enough, right? That you would lose part of your identity when you adopted the mother identity, even the surgeon one, because I lost it. So I think it was, I lost it. I decided to get rid of it. Because when I had the kids, then we moved and then I quit my career. So that was with the second kid. So I had been a mom for 2 years. And then now suddenly I have this new identity, two kids, and not a career that was, defined my life since I was 18.
Yeah. And seeing my own version of that, where I'll catch myself like, I have to do this. Like, wait a second. Who says I have to do it?
Yeah.
I can, and I
Yeah.
can do something else if I choose to. I'm going through this transition in life where it's like I've gone, 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 gone. And now it's like, whoa, I actually get to slow down. And I
Yeah.
get to be more mom in the future than I've ever been before. I had my last one who just turned 2. I gave myself a week and I was back in the office.
Yeah, imagine
But
that.
it's
A
just
week.
Zoom, right? It's just Zoom.
Yeah.
I had my highest month the month before she was born. Actually, the day before she was born. We ended our closed car for our launch, and then I went and had a baby the next day, and then I was back in training in the following week. So it was like somehow it gets ingrained in us,
Yeah, I
and
call
then we
that the
have to
inner
think about like,
patriarchy more than, there's the patriarchy outside that tells us all the thing. And then there's the patriarchy that's implanted in our brains that I did not realize I had. I always thought of myself, "Oh, I'm a badass, I'm a cancer surgeon. I always like that person that was like called intimidating more than whatever other thing,
I
people are
got called
scared of.
intimidating during college all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I'm
Especially
like,
from
how
men
did
who are like, who are
I?
my friends, and then I'm like, why am I not dating? Like, why are y'all my friends? They're like, you're just intimidating. We don't want to like.
Yeah, I heard that so often. And then someone's like, how did I, the intimidating person, is now, I wouldn't even like put an earrings on. I was just like, "Ugh, this is my entire life. I have the mom genes, the whatever, like I don't take care of myself at all. And everything is for these people. And that was really interesting, especially when I went through coach training and I started, paying way more attention to those kinds of things and seeing how any of us can fall into that trap. And the inner patriarchy is inside of us because it's everywhere. Every single place we look at, those subtle messages are being implanted in our brains. And I think one of the biggest things that we can do for our brain health and for our health in general is to look at those things and decide which beliefs are yours and which you just have because it's just repeated so many times that, for example, that you have to take 1 week off when you have a child instead of like, no, take whatever, however much time you need. Definitely not a week, I would think. And just enjoy and be there, be present with your child. No, like we have to go back and we have because we're type A, and because we're professionals, because we have our business and all that stuff, we have force ourselves into that, which I don't think is true, because I took a year sabbatical and I was fine. Went back to my job and was like, oh, not my job, my practice. But it doesn't go away. It's still there. You can take it back. You can take some time. You can rest. You can take time for your kids and all of that.
Yeah. Along the along your journey, what would you say was the best decision you made for your brain, helping it to become unshakable?
I think it was two things. One was taking that sabbatical. I think that was really important because life in New York as a person working at Sloan Kettering and then as an 40-year-old intern at New York Presbyterian was a lot. I worked many, many hours. You had like maybe 20 hours, off one day a week, whatever. And I felt like I couldn't even think. It's the point that you don't even make decisions anymore. You're just like being thrown, with the current because you're just so tired. So I think taking that break and be, no, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna actually figure out who am I, first of all, and what is life about? Because my entire life, it was once I decided to go into medical school, you're like, oh, it's medical school, and I was residency, and I was this, and I was this. The path is all like just shows
Yeah,
up in
it's like
front
your
of you.
plan is laid out for you and you're supposed to follow
Yeah.
it.
And it's very, in a way, sort of unconscious. You just keep going. So taking that break can be, no, I'm in going to the jungle in Hawaii where there was no cell service, there was very faint Wi-Fi. So it was away not only from civilization, society, and everyone, but also from my family, from everything that I knew. It was 8 hours time difference from Brazil, so I couldn't really talk a lot with my family. So being completely removed from all of those expectations and being in a place where a lot of people are in transition and a lot of, there's a lot of very deep conversations and all those transformational workshops. I lived in a retreat center that had all those kinds of things. So really, that was when I realized for the first time, I was 40, that surgeon was a part of my identity, was not my entire being. Because until that
That's
point, I
so
thought if
good.
yeah, if I'm not a surgeon, there's nothing left of me. Like that's all I know, that's all I am. It's so all encompassing that I didn't see anything outside. And I didn't plan to not be a surgeon, but I realized that, oh, I'm more than that. I am an actual person with a lot of other things other than being surgeon. And which was very useful when I actually had to make the really hard decision to leave a career that I not only I loved, but I was successful at, and start doing something that a lot of people looked, like I did. Well, yeah, that sounds like a scam. And I don't do just life coaching now. I have another business, but still, I still think that was the second part to go through coach training, because then it was really looking at a lot of parts of my brain and be more conscious in the beliefs. The first part with that big belief as me as a surgeon is my whole entire identity. And then with coach training, because you do so much coaching while you're in training, that I really had to examine a lot of the things that I believed. And that was the second part that I feel now really, it just made my brain younger almost. I feel younger now than I felt then.
Yeah. And you actually gave your brain rest where,
Yeah.
in chiropractic school, I joke around that we got so good at test taking. We
Yeah,
would take
sure.
26 exams in a week. Like
Yeah.
that was very common, just to keep
Yeah.
pumping out exams and regurgitate information. And then when you say like, I am a surgeon, but then you realize that there's more to you. I had this conversation with Dr. Rewire when he and I were pairing up with this brain DNA test. And I just said, I'm a chiropractor because he's a chiropractor as well. Neither one of us adjusts anymore. Neither one of us ever wants to go back to adjusting. So what does that look like in the future? How do
Yeah.
we still use our chiropractic degree? Because it's like you spent all this time and money
Hmm.
What do you do with it moving forward? And for me, it's more of a platform now and a time in my life that gave me opportunities in which I have now stepped through. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's something that you've done where like you were once a surgeon and then you saw something different that you wanted. You wanted to be able to spend time with your boys. I've always wanted to spend time with my kids too, which is one of the reasons why I stepped away from that adjusting was I didn't want to adjust 40, 50, 60 hours a week
Yeah.
and then be like one of those chiropractors and barely make ends meet. Like, no, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
exactly.
find something different to do. And for me, it was blood work. Now it's all brain stuff. For you, it was life coaching, and now you're doing business coaching.
Yeah, and helping the people who want to what I'm s- when people want to come out of the medical practitioner, whatever it is, world and move to entrepreneurship, I think there's such a jump that we have to do for so many reasons. For example, when I started coaching school, and obviously then you start having to talk about your business, as you yourself as a business person, because now you have to go and find your clients, which and then I realized that I had a private practice when I lived in Brazil. It was the same. So I was a business person for over 10 years, and I had never once considered myself, thought of myself as a business person. I had an office, I had employees, I had a team, I paid my taxes, was like full on adulting, and never thought of myself as a business person. And then I was like, I think that's a very common thing when you're in the medical world. You're like, oh yeah, I'm a doctor. That's what I am. And doesn't matter that people are paying me money and I'm, having to manage all this stuff on top of managing the clinical stuff. So, and now I see with the clients that I work with, because now I'm helping people do that, move from you want to either a side hustle or a full-on business, I will create the whole tech for you and do the coaching because the coaching is a very important part to move from a world where you have all the answers, right? You're talking about all these tests. We take so many tests that we get used to the fact that it's like, well, yeah, if you go to a book or a thing, there's an answer there. You're gonna find the answer, and this is the answer, and this is the only answer. Everything else is wrong. And entrepreneurship is like, everything works. Throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. I don't know. Nobody's gonna die. Just do it and try it out. And it's so hard. At least it was for me, and I see in so many of my clients getting rid of that. But where are the answers? Where's the guidelines? Where is the backup plan? Where is all those things? Like, no, we don't have that. You have to
Yeah.
figure it out.
For
And
my brain, it was the timeline because there
mm,
was always a timeline in school.
yeah,
Until the test. Okay.
right.
Next quarter,
Yeah,
next test, next quiz, next class. There was always set in timelines. Whereas when you get out into the real world and you're running a business,
yeah.
there's no timelines. There's
There's
no
no timeline, there's
until
no
this, and then
guidebook.
you can do this. It's so
Yeah.
different, and our brains literally have to grasp those
Yep.
changes.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you do have to change the way you think in the end,
Yeah.
which is the perfectionist. You want your surgeon to be a perfectionist for sure. I was a massive perfectionist and having to let go of that. Oh, for example, if you want, I don't know, create a landing page, the simplest thing. Every single thing has to be perfect because when you're there tying up vessels and stuff, yeah, you want that thing to be very as close to perfect as you possibly can because people's lives are on the line. And in entrepreneurship, you have to let go of that and you have to be like, no, failure is 100% part of it. You're not going to get anywhere without failing a bunch. And being able to take that without having your nervous system connect that to failure in medicine, especially as a cancer surgeon,
Oh
let me tell you,
gosh.
that's not fun.
Guilty as charged.
Right? Even when I remember when I was a Sloan Kettering, one of my patients from Brazil, she showed metastasis showed up and she ended up dying pretty quickly. And I went to my boss, who is one of the most respected surgeons in the world. And I told her, like, oh, I showed her all the exams, everything that I did. And she has to stop and look at me and like, you did everything right. Sometimes the biology is just the biology. And she just had a very aggressive cancer. Yes, it was early stage, but the biologically it was still very aggressive. And the for me to grasp no, that's not my fault that she died. It was so hard. And those kinds of things, whenever you face failure quote unquote in entrepreneurship. I don't know if someone had a mean comment on your YouTube video or whatever
You know
silly,
how
or
many
a
times
client
I've
complains.
launched something and no one's bought, or like one
A
person's
hundred,
bought? That
yeah,
people just see the ones where I've won so big, but they don't see the
yeah,
ones where I did it anyways, not knowing what the outcome
totally.
was, and it was a negative or a, well, that really sucked. What happened there kind of moment.
Yeah, or when a
And it,
client is mad at you because as a coach, you piss off clients sometimes because you have to tell them like, yeah, it's kind of like there's a lot of stuff that you're getting in your way. As a client of coaches, I can attest that it does not feel good when you're like, what? Am I the problem? No, I'm not the problem. Everybody else is the problem. So obviously, in having to deal with that is, your nervous system goes straight into, oh my God, like that reaction that you had when something went wrong in medicine. So being able to increase your capability to for failure is essential for entrepreneurship. So that's why the business that I do now, yes, I create all the tech. I would do like the website, the branding, all that stuff, but also the coaching, because you can have all the websites and branding and your offer and your content, everything. And if your mindset is correct, you're not going to do things. You're not going to try it out. You're not going to put yourself out there. You're not going to launch the thing. You're not going to keep going, because entrepreneurship is basically, yeah, you have to keep going with the rejection, with the failure and all that. And that's just how it's going to be. It's never going to be like, oh, now I've arrived and I have no issues anymore. That's never going to be the case.
yeah, there's no test, there's
Yeah.
no deadline,
Gold star, you did
there's
it.
no
There's
like
no,
A, B, C, D, E. There's no
yeah.
E, but A, B, C, D, and then F. Like
Yeah.
F just comes as part of the journey.
Exactly.
And
And
we're
I
not
do
trained in that way.
And I do think that, going back to the brain health thing, I think that just like learning a second or a third language, you increase your brain pathways and all that stuff, and you increase your brain health when you do that. I think moving from the medical world, or even job, like if you always had a job and then you become an entrepreneur, is kind of the same thing. But medicine is more because you're just so all encompassing. I think that's kind of like learning a new language, because you have to learn all of those new things. The people that come to me for my business, they're like, I don't know where to press on the things. I don't know. Like the tech is just, I was just having a conversation with a client yesterday. She was like, I hate tech. I cannot. At least it was like, yeah, that's why you hire me. I will deal with that until you increase your capacity, because it does take a long time. So what I want to provide is, let me handle that stuff and slowly give it to you while you have a business, instead of you having to take 5 years to increase your capacity by yourself while having to learn all the tech and do all the things and learn this new language of entrepreneurship, which is very much, I would even say almost more than a new language, because there's so much more there's required of your nervous system, that that also increases your capacity in many ways, brain wise.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about so much today. We've covered so much along your journey. What's one tip that you could leave individuals on helping them create that unshakable brain, especially as they go through a transition in life? Because you've been through many, and I'm in one right now.
Yeah, don't believe everything you think. That's
Ooh,
one
that's
thing.
good. Don't believe everything you think.
Yeah, because our brains they want us to survive. Our brains are not interested in us being happy, in us thriving, in us, none of that. Your brain just wants you to not die. That is the mission. So if you take everything you believe and that you think with a grain of salt, and you actually question it with just one simple, whenever you have a thought, you can just ask yourself, is that true? Can I be sure that it's true? Who says? Because a lot of times it's going to be like, oh, my third grade teacher or my mom or whatever. Like it's going to be that person who implanted that thing in your brain. And like, oh no. For example, oh, you're not good with money, so you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Who said that? Where did you learn that? Like ask yourself those questions, those truths that you're very much, no, I can't do that because, okay, let's examine that. Let's make sure that that is true and that you can't do the thing because of that, or that's just a thought that you repeated so many times that it became a belief. And now you think as it is the law of gravity, it's not. That's the truth. The law of gravity. Maybe you not being good with money is not. And even if you're not, you can learn,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right. All right. Don't believe everything you think. That's our end of chat today and
Yeah.
call to action. So next time you have a thought that you're just like, oh, don't believe it. Don't believe everything you
Yeah.
think. I
Yeah.
am Dr. Kylie. This is Dr. Manuela. And doctor, where can they find you? Specifically, practitioners who want to pivot their business.
Oh, love that word because it is the name of my business, doctorspivot.com. You can have all the information about my business. And if you want to connect with me on my personal Instagram is Dr. Manuela Powell on Instagram and all the social media. And that's my
Cool.
chaotic dancing, kids, life, business, everything all together. I love connecting with people. If you do follow me there, please send me a DM and let's get to know each other.
Cool. All right. You have heard it on Unshakable Brain. If you would be so, just take a minute and leave a review and send this podcast to a friend. I would greatly appreciate it. Next time.